Hello.
Hello, everyone.
So, hi everyone. I'm Virginia.
I'm Barbara.
Welcome to Mindset, your weekly live stream giving you the tools and knowledge to manage your mental health and well-being.
Yeah. Today's session is going to be about relationships. Woo! Mindset is put together by Body and Soul staff, therapists, and people with lived experience of mental health. We know the tools that work and we want to share them with you in a friendly and accessible way. We're going to talk about
relationships with Darryl.
Yeah, so over to you, Darryl.
I'll be live scribing,
by the way. Sorry.
So what we're going to talk about, not so much about just relationships, but about the type of person that you are in relationships and which different kinds of relationships. And then maybe over the next couple of weeks, you try to give you some tips around being more effective in relationships. Yeah. So usually, so the first question that I have for people is, when you think about yourself, how are you in? Because if you're here, the chances are you're super sensitive, and if you're super sensitive, then you'll be having trouble in relationships. Yeah, and the kind of trouble that you might be having is that you might be a bit of a doormat. Yeah, and when I say doormat, what I mean is you might notice that you're, I think other terms for it are people pleaser, or you might notice that you're a people pleaser and that all you do is go around doing things for other people all the time, doing what people ask you to do. So you might be a bit of a doormat, or the opposite of that is that you might be a bit of a bulldozer. And what the bulldozer does is the bulldozer just does what they want to do all the time, and they don't take other people's feelings into consideration, and they just run riot over those. Yeah, that's two kinds of ways that people can be in a relationship. But what you usually find with highly sensitive people is that they are oscillating between the two. So sometimes they're a doormat and sometimes they're a bulldozer. And there's other ways of looking at it. You can look at it as a monster and a mouse, a lamb and a lion, but starting to think about, like, what are you and with who, right? So you can use your pen and paper for this. So some people are a monster in relationships, in romantic relationships, but they're a mouse with their friends, or they might be a mouse with their romantic relationships, and they might be a monster with their parents. Yeah, or they might be one or the other at work and another one. So it is contextual. It's thinking about what are you in what situation. And some of you will be 50-50, some of you will be 60-40, some of you will be 90-10. So maybe start to think about, on that piece, start to think about, what are you generally? Are you monster, mouse, and how much of each? So Barbara, what are you?
I think I'm probably 60-40 doormat.
So you're like doormat, and then you explode.
Yep.
Yeah. And Virginia, my guess is that you're like 90% doormat and 10% bulldozer.
Shut up. Why'd you have to call me out?
It's just a guess.
I would say it's 70% doormat and 30%.
Really? Okay. Can you just nip off and make me a coffee?
No, I can't, because you're not here.
No, but you would have if I was there, right? So you see what the doorman does is they're like, yeah, okay, I'll be off. I've done it to you before, actually, and you've gone like, how many sugars? So it doesn't. So I'm not judging it. I'm not judging you for it. It's just getting you to notice which one, right? And you see, whichever one of these you are, there are consequences for it, right? And what we're going to do is, you see, the thing about the bulldozer, for example, the consequence of a bulldozer is, if you keep riding over certain people's feelings, is that you end up with no friends, and then you end up depressed. Yeah, or you end up with people doing stuff for you, but they'd rather not. Yeah, and the consequence of the doormat is that you just keep doing stuff for other people all the time, and what happens is you get exhausted, and you never do anything for yourself. So you get exhausted, you get burnt out, you get depressed. Yeah. So neither of these are ideal. And what we're going to do is we're going to look at some of the techniques that you can use to be able to ask for what you want, or to get things from other people, you know, get people to do what you'd like them to do, get people to take your opinion seriously, say no. So this is often about asking or saying no. And when you use this kind of model, what you're looking at is what they call a probability-based model. Yeah. So you teach you little parts of techniques that give you more and more of a chance of getting what you want or being able to say no. But the underlying theme is that you always get to keep your dignity and your integrity. Because some of you, what will happen is if you're a bulldozer, you explode at people and then you feel shame and stuff later on. And if you're a doormat, yeah, you're sort of constantly putting your own self-respect aside, and that also has a consequence. Yeah. So we're going to look at some of that. So the first thing, so other than what are you 50-50, 60-40, the next thing I would ask you to do is, what do you have more trouble doing? Asking or refusing? You know, you have more trouble asking for stuff or saying no?
Depends on who, though.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it does. But you want to still identify with it. You still want to know, don't you? You still want to know where you know, if you don't know when and where you have that difficulty, you can't do anything about it. Yeah. So where do you have? So this is for others. Where do you have that difficulty? The next thing, yeah. So thinking about that, maybe jot it down. If you've got your pen and paper, jot it down, right? Because I'm going to ask you some questions that I want you to jot down. So the issue about relationships, how to build relationships, how to, maybe some of you need to end some relationships because they're just not working out for you. But if you're a highly sensitive person, right, you have to really take care of relationships. You see, because if you don't look after your relationships with people, and that includes stopping people, then they collapse. And when relationships collapse, you might have noticed that you get very stressed out when your relationships collapse. And this then makes you emotionally vulnerable. And this essentially leads into a bit of a disastrous life. So there's a trajectory to follow around relationships, yeah? Because some of you will be avoiding dealing with relationship issues. And the issue around that is, you see, the longer you take to repair a relationship, the more difficult it gets. And as time goes on, it gets even more difficult. And at some point, it's just too late. So I had a friend of mine for like 15, 20 years or something like that. And we used to do all sorts of stuff together. And what we would do is whenever we fell out or had an argument, one of us would contact the other one and say, look, why don't you come and meet me down the smoothie shop? And you know, meet me down the smoothie shop, and we would talk about it. Yeah. And one day we had an argument while we were out playing football, and I didn't message him and he didn't message me, and we just didn't meet up and fix it. And it's now been years, and I've not spoken to this guy for a good maybe 3 years now. But you know, the thing is, I have no idea what we actually fell out about. No idea. I can't remember it at all. It was probably something small. So that's what I want you to think about, right? What you do is if you want to strengthen the relationships you have, don't let the hurts and the problems build up. Use some of these skills to head off problems. You know, repair relationships when you need to, resolve the conflicts before they go on too long. As well as the other issue around this is finding and building new relationships. You know, when we're looking for new relationships, there's a formula for finding relationships, which is about proximity, about being close to people, and also about having things in common. sharing values and things like you need certain things in common. And others of you, maybe you want to think about some of your relationships that need to go. Yeah, because some of your relationships will be hopeless. There's nothing's going to change. You've tried too long, too hard, and maybe you need to end those because they also have an effect on your well-being. So I'm going to ask you to do a little exercise about your personality and how you are in relationships. So Barbara and Virginia and some of the others out there, I want you to ask yourself these two questions. Yeah. The first question is, what is it about you that pulls people in? You know, what is it about you that makes people want to be around you? And the other question is what is it about you that puts people off? If anyone wants to share what pulls people in, what pushes people away, I'd be interested to see I'd be very interested to see what those things are. Give me one of each, Virginia, and then let's see if any of our people have any. Come on, Virginia.
What pulls people to me? I think I am reliable. I have empathy and I can listen to people's problems, and I am loyal and protective of my friends. And
are you judging at the minute?
I'm not. I'm just trying to find things to.
Okay. All right, Barbara, what about you?
What pulls people in? Well, I'm interested in people, and I think I'm quite a good listener.
You see, good is a judgment, so that's why I was like, okay.
Yeah,
I listen. I
listen to people.
I listen to,
what pushes people away or puts people off? I don't say very much in lots of situations, so I think people can judge me and think that I'm like aloof or something when I'm actually shy. Yeah.
Okay.
Especially, yeah.
Okay, we got one. Got one from someone saying yes, going with the flow, saying yes and going with the flow, puts people off when I can't say yes anymore. Yeah. So these are kind of things. What you might see is something that pulls you in. You could see that something that pulls you in can also put people off. Yeah. So you can have it going across.
What do you mean? I don't understand.
Saying yes and doing loads of stuff for other people, yeah, can be really enticing for some people, and other people you don't really know what that, and for that other person is, oh yeah, they always want to do what I want to do, but on the other side of it, no one really knows what you think because you just say yes to everything.
Yeah, on the other side, it can put people off, right?
Yeah. So Olivia was saying that pulls people in, caring, pushes people away, sensitivity, right? So yeah, the sensitivity can do it, isn't it? That irritating kind of needy, the kind of neediness that can put people off. All right. So what we're going to do when we talk about relationship skills is think about what they call the middle path. How do you create and maintain balance in your relationships? Balance in both sides of this, both acceptance and change. Getting people to change. And often when people go through modules like this, what you see is that their relationships change. And one of the great indicators for a healthy relationship is how much the other person lets you change. So whether you're a monster or a mouse or what, when you want to change that, how accepting are other people of that? You see, because if you're a doormat and you just do everything that other people want, then they'll just like you, right? Because what's to dislike? Yeah. But when you change and you want to start to do some of the things that matter to you, and other people don't want to help you with that, then that kind of tells you all you need to know about them, right?
Yeah.
So I suppose the way I would look at it was I remember when I was at university. Yes, I did go. When I was at university, there was this guy at university, and he was a very popular chap. Yeah, the girls used to swarm around him, and he was very charismatic. And I remember thinking, I want to be this guy's friend. I want to be this guy's friend, man. He's like. So I wanted to be around. So I wanted to be around him all the time, right? So I wanted to try and get to know him. And one day he asked me to lend him 50 quid, which in those days was worth about £4,000. So I lent him this. I lent him this 50 quid, and a few months later, I needed it back, and I was desperate for it back, and I actually knew that he had the money, yeah, and it was no sweat of his nose to give it back to me. So I asked him, and he wouldn't give it back, and he just wouldn't give it back. And when I think about it, and he didn't ever give it back actually. And when I think about it, that was the best 50 quid that I've ever spent in my life, right? Because you see, the fact that he wouldn't give it back told me everything I needed to know about this guy. So I didn't then go on and waste lots of time getting to know him, hanging out with him, building a relationship, and all of that sort of stuff. I didn't need to do it, because I knew what I knew what he thought of me, and I knew what kind of person he was. So this is something that you can use to, if you can get over the emotional vulnerability or the fear of not being people not liking you, you can use this in your favor. So that's something for you to think about in relationships. So look, everybody worries about asking for what they want, and everybody worries about saying no. This is perfectly kind of usual. And what I'll talk to you a bit about today is about what are the things that make it more difficult. Yeah. And when you look at the factors that get in the way of relationships, you often have two issues that are going on, or a combination of two issues that are going on. One is an intellectual issue. Yeah. And the intellectual issue is just not knowing how to do this, not knowing about relationship skills. And the other one is the emotional issue, which is the difficulty in acting. So if you've had any sort of relationship difficulties or problems this week and you weren't able to resolve them, it will be one of those two things. It'll either be knowing what to do, or the action based from it. Yeah. So what I'll do now is, while we got a couple of minutes left, is I'm going to run through some of the issues that might be getting in the way for you, and see if you can hook in and realize which ones are yours. Yeah. So basically, relationship skills are learned from parents and from other people, right? And so we learn from watching others, and this might not have happened in your life. Yeah. Because we watch others, we refine, we learn, we refine. So maybe your parents didn't have great relationship skills. Yeah. Yeah. So it would be difficult. So if you think about your parents, how are their relationship skills? Are they bulldozer doormat? Are they swapping between the two? And the reason it's important to understand that is because you just might not have had a chance. And the distinction here is there is a big difference between a lack of ability and a lack of motivation. And some of you may be blaming yourselves for just not sorting it out. But you can't sort something out if you don't know how to do it. Yeah. So that's one of the things that might get in the way. Another thing that might get in the way is indecision. Yeah. You just don't know. You just don't know. You don't know what you want from other people. You don't know what, you can't figure out how to, excuse me, you can't figure out how to balance your needs versus the other person's. You can't get that seesaw or going. So sometimes maybe you're asking for too much. Sometimes you're not asking for anything. Sometimes you're saying no to everything. And other times you might be giving in to everything. Yeah. So that might get in the way. For lots of you, what might get in the way is your emotions. So I want Barbara and Virginia to think about, what are the emotions that get in the way of you for asking for stuff or saying no for people?
Usually if I care a lot about the person, I find it really hard to say no.
So love or like. So if you like someone too much, you find it difficult to say no.
Well, for me, it's like fear. Like if I say no, then maybe they won't want to, hang around me or something. Or
Yeah. So we've got love. See, love can definitely get in the way, is a big one, and so can fear. But then if you look at some of the other emotions as well, what about pride, or what about shame? Can you see how shame might get in the way?
Well,
You ask for what you want, you might be rejected, isn't it? You might be rejected by your friends. All your friends. Some of your friends want to go to the cinema, and you want to go to a comedy club, and you think, right, if I keep insisting on this, then they're all going to leave me or something like that. So,
well, that's what I said when I was that was the kind of situation I was thinking of when I said fear. So you're saying it's not fear, it's shame?
Well, it depends, isn't it? It's unlikely that your life is at risk when,
Oh, yeah.
But it's reasonably, but you are risking people shunning you if, I don't know, if you want to, if you want to go and do a load of stuff and they don't, so that gets in the way. The other thing that can get in the way is that your values. So what you can do is you can forget your long term. You can forget what's important to you in the long term and give in a short term way. So what you do is you try to keep the peace now. I don't know. I have this kind of problem with my missus all the time. She doesn't like washing up, and I think, God, if I ask her to do the washing up now, things are going well, we're having a nice evening. If I tell her it's her turn to do the washing up, I'm going to spoil the evening. I'm going to spoil the evening. So what I do is I don't say anything. But although in the long term, we have an agreement that we're going to share it. So not acting in that moment. And then what happens is it builds up. And then suddenly I'm like, why don't you ever do the bloody washing up? Why don't you ever do this? Why don't you ever do that? And she's like, what's gone on with you? You've changed. It hasn't bothered you before. So like saying nothing now has a consequence later on. Yeah. So that can also affect you. I'll do one more. There are lots of different things that get in the way. I'll do one more, and then you can wrap it up. But the other thing that might get in your way is just other people. Other people and other consequences. Other people can be just too powerful. Yeah. Other people, if I was to ask a policeman, no matter how well I asked him, if I was to ask him to lend me a random policeman, if I was to walk up to him and ask him to lend me £5,000, it wouldn't matter how, if I said, oh, I love the way your hat fits, I love the blue, with your eyes, I could be as skillful as I liked, but he's still not going to give it to me. He's still not going to lend me that £5,000, is he? Or there might be really negative consequences of you asking for stuff. You might ask stuff and you might be at risk of, violence or such an aversive response, being shouted at, screamed at, that you just can't, that it doesn't fit to carry on. Yeah. Or it could be other kinds of conflicts. And then the last one is like what you believe about yourself can get in the way. Oh, I don't deserve to get what I want. I don't deserve it, or it might be that, or you think that, you shouldn't have to tell people what you need. They should just magically know. I shouldn't need to tell my boyfriend that I'm upset. He should see it written all over my face. Yes? You look guilty, Barbara. Yeah. So
wow.
No, I don't think that way. I was thinking about something else entirely.
Well, that is not very mindful, is it?
Nope.
So, so it's those kind of things. Anyway, so that's a bit of an intro to relationship difficulties. I'm going to hand it back to.
Yep. I have a question though, Darryl. So what are the key points that you want people to practice for their homework if they choose to do it?
What we can do is we can send people a list a list of some of the typical things that people think that get in the way of relationships, and they can have a look and see which ones are theirs, and then they can see if they can challenge them, right? So maybe if you took the example of I don't deserve to get what I want or need, right? If you believe that, then you think, well, what might your boyfriend or girlfriend say? What might your parents say? What does the UN Convention of Human Rights say? So they can challenge some of these thoughts.
Okay. These tools are really, really useful when you put them into practice. They are not one use only. They're not like, handy wipes or something. Got to practice. Right. We've created, we have a Instagram, especially for mindset, at Share the Mindset. There's also at Body and Soul Charity. So if you follow both of those, you'll have everything. And we have our website, don't we? What is our website URL?
It's a bodyandsoulcharity.org/mindset.
With everything on one page.
Yay!
We're very happy about
library.
that. Yeah, which is very, very handy.
And if you have any questions, feel free to email us at mindset@bodyandsoulcharity.org.
Absolutely. Yes.
Well, in the meantime, keep working
on
your
mindset.
mindset.
Thanks for coming. See you next week.